Well, welcome everybody. We're here on sunny afternoon in Burlington, and we have the pleasure of having Devon Miller, who's the director of ClearEstate, with us. ClearEstate is a company that provides executor services and help people with like will planning and all that kind of stuff. Private Wealth has formed a formal relationship with them in January of 2023, and we have used them on a few occasions already with a couple of our clients. So we're going to spend a little bit of time here and get to know what ClearEstate is, who they are, and how they work. So, Devon, thanks very much for taking the time out for us today. That's a good place to start. Who is ClearEstate?
Well, thanks for having me out here, Dave. So I can actually tell you we are Canadian grown. I'm founded in Montreal, actually. So the
Okay.
came across Canada a few years ago there now. So we're servicing all of Canada and throughout the US, a good number of states, mostly in the South. So California, Texas, Arizona, Florida. So for those of you that are snowbirds out there, we've got you covered there too. And we mainly do two things here. We provide at-need settlement services for individuals that find themselves an executor that need some assistance along the way in settling estate. And we help you get a grasp on that beforehand to take that burden off of your family, your children, your friends, in helping people plan their estates in conjunction with Dave's guidance there at IA Private Wealth, all the way up to us serving as a professional trustee and executor through our trust partner, so that you can take that load off of someone way down the road and make a difficult time that much easier for them.
Great. Well, I know just in my practice, I've always had that question of, do we have our kids be the executors? Do we have our friends be the executors? It's amazing to me the number of times that I get state settlement issues that I have to deal with from what I do for a living. And I'm talking to people who, A, didn't know they were an executor. The person who elected them to be an executor never told them. They didn't understand their responsibilities as an executor. And certainly over the last couple of years, from the federal government standpoint, they've increased the responsibilities and potential liability back on an executor if they don't do something correctly when it comes to the valuation of the estate. So, it may seem like an obvious question, but what created the marketplace for a ClearEstate in Canada and the United States today?
Yeah, I mean, initially it actually spurred from one of the company founders that actually went through the estate administration of his own mother. And then it was an unexpected loss that, wasn't planned as well as it perhaps could have been in advance. But in working through that process himself, this individual found, himself very lost at an already difficult time for his family, was trying to seek out an attorney and then seek out an accountant. And, beyond those separate entities and the difficulties dealing there were a lot of steps along the way where there was no help. And amongst all that, he was, dealing with siblings as well as, what's taking so long? Why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? And, it's a job that nobody usually signs up for, or like you said, people have been signed up for without their knowledge. And, there isn't really training for everyone to do this. This is something that most people can go through their entire lives without having to do it. And those that find themselves having to do it once, maybe twice. So it's a really unfamiliar area.
I mean, I can remember a situation that I had some involvement with indirectly, and there was two children involved in the estate, and mom had passed away. Dad was deceased earlier, and our client was one of the siblings that was not involved in the actual executorship. And they kept asking me questions, and they were kind of leading the way to answer questions, but they weren't really outwardly coming to me and asking questions. And finally I said to them, I said, why? What are you asking all these questions for? So they relayed to me that one of the siblings that was the executor, it was over 2 years since the mother passed away, and there was still no settlement and no communication, and it was just not a very good situation, and no accountability. I know in my wife's parents were killed in a car accident. And the first thing I said to them, I wasn't involved in the estate either, but I said to them, you need, the first thing that this needs to be done is an accounting. Do a balance sheet to see what's what, whether there are any debts and any assets and whatnot. And again, very, very seldom is that ever done. And in this situation, like the time frame for being executing the estate in a reasonable time like had long passed. In fact, I think they're now going on 3 years and it's still not done. So the thing that what I like so much about ClearEstate, and you can lend some information on it, is you don't have to worry about that. It's you sign up with ClearEstate. They're going to be looking after your wills if you need to. They'll be updating your wills, and the process is from a professional standpoint. It's not, the emotional part of it is not involved in it whatsoever, because it's a professional service that you offer. So maybe you can just kind of lend a little bit of insight as to what happens and what you guys do, and practically.
Absolutely. So, I mean, and when working with you and your clients, we believe that, as you do, that the estate plan is an important part of the financial plan. But from an emotional standpoint, we make sure that, we're professionals, but we're able to do a whole bunch of the things for families beyond that, right? Appointing a professional executor in advance, one, it ensures you have the expertise dealing with this that are able to, all of you out here, you've engaged David to help you with your financial plan. You may have an attorney that's incorporated a business for you, or an accountant that's helping you with taxation needs. But at the time when it comes to unwind these things, when your estate is really happening, when you're gone, who's left there to deal with that? A lot of times it's conventionally been a sibling or a child, but they may not possess, and often don't, the professional expertise to do it, right? They also have their own life, their own careers, their own children of things they're already dealing with. And similar to Dave's point there with the beneficiary asking lots of questions, I mean, we never want to think about something like this happening, but, estate settlement has damaged family relationships, sometimes irreparably over time. And doing this is a way to have a somewhat neutral party look after things here in a way that's going to be fiduciarily responsible, also ensure that everyone else involved in the estate is equally involved, and no one feels like they have more or less control, or something is being influenced by someone else that they may not want.
Yeah. I mean, I came across another example of the necessity for this. It comes up a lot when we do our normal processing. We call it more the intergenerational wealth transfer, and who takes care of it. And it's amazing how many people don't have someone to actually look after the executorship for their affairs, or they're not, maybe they've got a distant relationship with one of their children, and that children is the one that's the closest in terms of proximity that can, take care of that. But in one case that we are dealing with, the parent doesn't want that individual. That individual is going through some other shit, stuff of his own problem. So that to me is the beauty of ClearEstate, is that, I'm thinking of another situation that we've recently come across where, the lady she doesn't have any children. She was never married. And, unfortunately, she's had some of her siblings predecease her. So she has really nobody to look after anything. Nobody to look after her affairs, nobody to look after her executorship, nobody to, quite honestly, leave the money to. So I've suggested to her maybe she wants to create a charitable foundation or something. But again, we need to engage ClearEstate to be that professional executorship, because literally in her situation, there is nobody, absolutely nobody.
And Dave, I mean, we can and have worked with individuals like that. I've helped a similar individual out in Alberta, actually, where the entire estate went to a hospital foundation. Yeah, right. And that was something that was a very positive experience, and that we could do something like that her legacy was still a benefit to so many people. And even in the case where you do have someone, I mean, this makes your legacy just that at a time that's already difficult. I mean, losing a loved one is obviously going to be a huge emotional impact, without adding, concern about, am I fulfilling my fiduciary role properly? What do I do with the house? How do I file for, like, what are all these things I'm unaware of at this point? Individuals are left to support each other, knowing that that's already been taken care of.
Yeah. I guess one of the questions that I could see coming up with clients is, I've got 3 kids. Why would I hire a ClearEstate to look after my affairs when I've got children that are, and a lot of times, quite honestly, I'll get someone to tell me, it says, one of my daughters is a lawyer, or my son is an accountant. I still see the need for ClearEstate. How would you respond to someone with those kind of issues going on?
Absolutely. I've engaged clients with children as attorneys that I know of. And for example, one of them lived out of province in British Columbia, had absolutely no desire to be flying back and forth to deal with affairs out of province, let alone the expense to do so to the estate. It simply didn't make sense, right? They may be an attorney, but they may not practice in the area of estate settlement, right? And part of what we do, just go beyond creating a will, is more of a plan. We'll often hear a lot, well, it's simple. It's simple. It's all going to go to my spouse, or it's all going to go to the kids equally. And the reality is, it's only simple if you really have a thorough plan to prepare to make it that way. We have worked with estates where someone, they left it all to their spouse, but the way it was arranged beforehand had those assets locked up in probate for over a year, right? And their spouse left themselves scrambling for liquidity of how do I pay the bills? This account is locked out now. I know it's there, but like the bank has frozen things on me. So yes, it was intended to be simple, just give it all to them, but the foundation wasn't laid to make it that way.
Yeah, we had one that individual, it was actually a son-in-law that was appointed the executor. And we did a lot of work here giving him direction because he didn't know what to do. And he was getting frustrated because we wouldn't release money. We didn't have money to release for the taxes. We didn't have money to release for the final funeral expenses and whatnot. And it's been in stages. And the client of ours, she passed away back in the fall. And literally just yesterday, we finished up providing the estate department at IA Private Wealth with the documentation that they needed and required to be able to send him that last tranche of money. They just said, we're not doing it because there's this not done, this not done. So again, it's, there's no course, there's no training ground for this stuff. And it's complicated. I have this sort of a, kind of an understanding that I express to clients that, if you've got a couple $100,000, it's a different situation. But once you get to $1 million or more, I really try to get people to go through the professional side of it. But of course, most people are dealing, like 93% of Canadians deal with Canadian banks. And you and I know, when you're dealing with a Canadian bank, all that is just money for them. And they can charge up to 5%. And in a lot of cases, they do charge 5%. So I'm saying to a lot of clients, you don't want to hire a professional executor because they're going to charge 5%, or you want to have your children do it because they're your children. And then the other thing I get quite often, which is kind of silly, but, well, I didn't want to name my one child the executor because the other 2 would have been upset. They were left out. So I've named all 3, and I'm going, oh, now you've just compounded the problem. So I see where ClearEstate comes up right through the middle there. They've got a big hole, and the running back's got the ball, and he's going for the touchdown. And that's because ClearEstate doesn't charge that 5%. How do you guys work, and how do you get paid?
Yeah. So ClearEstate, I mean, we work with you, upfront to create that estate plan. So, there's an initial fee for the wills, the power of attorney, and any complex planning needs you have as well. So for example, if any of you out there have a dependent with you know, some special needs that they may be receiving government support. You know, we can help you with planning mechanisms, something called a Henson Trust, for example, that will ensure that, you know, your heirs and beneficiaries don't lose that support they're getting over time due to their inheritance. It's a special consideration to make, right? Now, upon settlement, ClearEstate charges a minimum of $7,200 or 1% of the estate value, right? And the way we are able to operate so efficiently is by being part of your plan up front, right? Just like the bank would be, or, you know, often cases, an executor that was not known to be an executor, they're going in blind, right? They don't know what your plan was. They don't know what your financial picture was. They don't know who all of your beneficiaries were or where they are. We make sure we work with you to have that information for a comprehensive plan. And in doing so, we can do that administration for you at a much lower cost, but also do it much more promptly for your beneficiaries. So that's such a process that, you know, we have seen drag out to periods of 2 and 3 years doesn't happen, and gives them that closure much faster without the burden.
Yeah. You know, I taught a course at Sheridan College, and it was retirement planning course. And what was impressed upon me is it didn't matter if the client had $1 million or $30 million. The lack of financial wherewithal, the lack of knowledge about financial matters, it shocked me. And again, I'm looking, you know, back in my time when I taught at Sheridan, and I remember this one gentleman who just got a buyout from his company for $30 million. And we spent several hours together. And he knew what he did for a living, better than most. But if you took him 1 degree outside of what he did for a living and got into retirement planning, wealth planning, intergenerational wealth transfer, foundations, charitable donations, it shocked me the lack of insight and knowledge that he had. So the point I'm trying to make is it doesn't matter how sophisticated you are. You, in my opinion, need professional services that can. The big thing you just said to me is the most creative thing, which what we do in our office is planning. If you don't plan it, all of a sudden it's like, you know, you're driving down the highway at 100 miles an hour and you don't realize that the road's coming to an end, and you just keep right on going over the cliff because no one has actually sat down and tried to plan this stuff out. So for me, the reason that I liked our relationship with ClearEstate, and we've started to open up several files with you, is because of the planning work. There's no guesswork to it. Your services are with professional lawyers that only work for ClearEstate. And for all you clients out there that are looking for professional executive services, I think this is the only show in Canada that provides you with incredible planning work at an extremely well priced format. So anything else you'd like to add to that, Devon?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talk about estate planning, you know, jokingly internally, as this is the grown-up equivalent of eat your vegetables. And you know you're supposed to do it. You know it's good for you. You've heard all about the importance of it through various things. And at the end of the day, you still don't really want to do it, right? It's work. It's a tough conversation, but it's got to happen, right? And you know, doing it in a scenario where, you know, you work with Dave, he's there, and it's someone you're comfortable with and knows the picture can make it that much easier, and taking control of this decision when you're not under pressure, right?
Yeah.
When you're calm to do so, because I can tell you almost, you know, some executors will say no if you approach them, but almost everyone will say yes because they feel obligated.
Yeah.
Right. It's a big thing to be trusted with. And I can tell you just last week, I engaged with a gentleman administering his mother's estate, and his probate application had been rejected twice. Wow. Because of small mistakes. And when in speaking with him, I said, you know, what's got you ready at this point beyond that? And he said, my sister's the only other beneficiary. And as hard as this is for us losing our mom, my sister told me when this is done, she can retire. This is when we get this settlement done, she can quit work. She's done. And I've been trying for almost a year and I can't do it.
Yeah.
Right. And he says, I can't hold this up for her anymore.
Yeah.
I need the help. Right. And you know, that was nice to be able to help, but it's one of those things also, if we do ahead of time, it's taken care of. It's not a
Yeah.
whole, you're confident it's ready to go.
Well, first I'd like to say to any of our clients that are watching this, ClearEstate is a very, very, very top end service, and I wholeheartedly endorse these guys. We're involved in the planning work. In fact, when you have an interview with ClearEstate, the meeting is sent to me, and I'm actually there with you with the lawyer, so I can help out if there's some questions that you may not have answers to. I'm there to help you with, and I think it's a great service. So you know, I would like to once again thank Devon for coming and sharing this little bit of time with us, and just give us a call. It's ClearEstate. They're fantastic. And thanks very much, Devon, for your time.
Hey, very happy to be invited. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Have a good day.